everyone. It is April 26th, Sunday night, in time for another episode of Agent Paranormal, the home lockdown version. I'm your host, Rich, and with me is my co-host. It looks like the Brady Bunch screen to me. So to my right is Chris.
Hello.
To my left is Kevin and Maeve. Down below, the guy crashing on the couch is Pete. He's not feeling well today. And the square below me is Vinny. There's nobody Vinny up above me. So welcome to our show. I hope you're all doing okay.
How's it going, everybody?
Not too bad. How are you doing tonight?
I've been locked down so long I don't know who I am anymore.
You're Peter Leonard, and you have 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in front of you.
Now I know how ghosts feel. Trapped in a house.
No wonder they haunt everybody.
Yeah. Right. What you drinking there, Maeve?
Angry Orchard pear with a Utica Club koozie.
Okay, I saw the Utica Club thing, and I was thinking you were drinking a delicious cold...
Utica Club, brought to you by Saranac Brewery, Utica, New York. And if you've had too much Utica Club, you need to stop down and get some Utica coffee. Paranormal Blend,
Yep.
Sponsored by Agent Paranormal.
We got it all.
Yeah, you know what? It's been a really weird couple of months, and the coffee thing took off great for us. I sold all the coffee out. It's gone.
It's awesome.
Can't get any more. I can't get any more because, you know, everybody's like, got to wear a mask, and everybody's scared of getting coronavirus, all this crap. So haven't been able to get any more coffee, but as soon as this pandemic lifts, Rich is going to Utica Coffee to go get another batch of Agent Paranormal coffee. So if you like a delicious, tasty cup of it, let me know, and I'll get you a package of it. I'm your friend.
To the end.
I'm your friend to the end. So, hey, guys, we got an amazing episode tonight. We got a really special guest. Really, really special guest. She's had 3 different last names, but we're going to go with the ones that are probably the most recognizable. Carmen Reed.
Yep.
Carmen Snedeker. And she's going to be a guest on our show tonight. She's going to come on around 7:30, everyone. And I wanted her to start a little bit later because I wanted us to talk about the case. So how many of you have seen the documentary, The Haunting in Connecticut, on Discovery Channel?
Yep.
Pete? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So how many have you seen the movie, A Haunting in Connecticut?
Yep.
So what do you think of the movie compared to the documentary?
Candy doesn't really let me watch those shows.
I don't believe you. Oh, okay. Who's that? God? Is that the voice of God?
In Pete's house, I would say yes.
Pete, send us code if you're being held there hostage. Send us Morse code. Uh-oh. All right. Who lives closest to Pete's house?
Yep. Don and
Go
Maeve.
get him.
That was Pete. I'll be down in a few minutes.
Go rescue him. Right, so we're going to talk about a woman who owned or actually lived in a haunted funeral parlor. Vinny, that's right up your alley, my man.
Yeah, I've lived in, not haunted, but lived in a funeral home my whole life.
Now, there's no story, The Haunting in Herkimer?
No, nothing. Everything's peaceful.
Oh, cool. Actually, we've investigated funeral parlors before, and we found them to be the most peaceful place. The ambience is there that, oh, God, it's like it's a funeral parlor. People died here. There's got to be ghosts. But most of the time, they died someplace else. Yeah. And they came there, and it was a very peaceful experience. The families came in. There's church music playing, and we all celebrated their lives and left. So who would ever thought that a funeral home was really haunted? But so is the case in Connecticut. It's a different story.
Yep.
So
People are dying to get in there.
Oh, boy.
But
Here we go.
Oh.
Here we go.
Push
So-
like this,
I'm
and
laughing.
just peak goes away.
Yeah, we all push down. I don't know if anybody heard that, but don't worry.
Yeah, was that
Was
the
that your
12-pack
name?
crashing on the floor?
You pushed something down there, Kevin.
Yep.
That was Candy kicking you through the Zoom.
I'm sorry if I offended anybody out there. Please forgive me.
Kevin, I'm digging your hat there. The Asian hat? Oh, there's a T there. Oh, it goes into
Oh,
the
there.
brim. Okay, now I see it. Okay.
There you go.
What'd you think it said? Asian paranormal?
Agen, E-G-E-N, paranormal.
Well, you shouldn't be able to see the G either.
So for all of our people listening, I got to give Rich a lot of credit. He's got some really high-power guests he's had on this show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carmen's actually very popular on the convention circuit.
Absolutely.
She's done a lot with John Zaffis. This should be a good one for you tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I've known her for quite a few years now and had the opportunity to meet her in person and listen to her story and also listen to her lecture. And it's, I really started watching the Discovery documentary. One night I was just flipping through the channels, and usually when I do that, anything that paranormal that comes across, I got to stop and look at it. And I watched this, and within 3 seconds of me watching this, there's John Zaffis. I'm like, I didn't even know he was on this. So I started watching the whole thing. And it was a pretty creepy documentary, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
And, compared to the movie, which I saw many years later, but I found it extremely interesting because the Warrens were involved in the case. John was involved in the case as he was part of the Warrens team at the time. And here's the typical scenario of people owning a funeral home, supposedly, again, I don't know if this is proven or not, doing things to the bodies, opening up some kind of doorway, some kind of portal, and then the family moves in and things happen. Not only do things go bump in the night, but demonic-oriented type things start happening. I mean, these are the cases that many of us study and read when we become paranormal investigators, because we need to basically understand that sometimes we walk into a case, or it may be, an experience with a spirit or residual haunting, but it could be something much more sinister, as in the case of this. And I've talked at length to John Zaffis about this case, and he told me about the experience. This case is where John had the experience where he actually left the paranormal. He had an experience that frightened him, scared the shit out of the guy. He left and wanted nothing more to do with it. I mean, he literally got in his car and drove 100 miles an hour to get home to see his wife and kids. And it almost ended the career of John Zaffis, the godfather of ghost hunting as we know him now. But through some coaching from friends and people, the religious community that he knew, they were able to convince him to come back by telling him, listen, if you leave now, it won. And he thought about that long and hard and decided to go back into it. And I think we're all very thankful that he did that. But, I mean, here you got a guy who's investigated some of the most notorious places, and he has an experience so frightful that sends him running out of the house and decides to completely quit. Have you guys ever had an experience that came close to that? Would you like to share that with me?
So far, no.
I haven't really had anything that's upset me, even. They've all been pretty passive, or at least not enough to spook me, let's say.
But you imagine seeing something. I mean, we all watch horror movies and we're like, oh, that's scary. But imagine seeing something so frightening in real life that you just turn tail and you're out of there. You know what I mean? I mean, you're gone. And you're like, you know what? Here's my Ovilus. Here's my spirit box. You put it in the trunk, throw it in the dumpster. I'm done. I want nothing to do with this. Have I come close to it before? No, I had an experience at the Hinsdale that was kind of knocked me off my rocker a little bit, but not enough to make me do that. I mean, maybe if I saw something standing there with 6 heads and it was snarling and it smelled like rotten meat and it was telling me it was going to come get me if I didn't leave, then yeah, I probably would have ran out there like a little kid crying. Absolutely. I'm not too proud to admit that. Peter,
Yeah.
You're creeping me out a little bit.
I've seen stuff that will turn your shit green. I grew up in a haunted house.
Let me
Not
tell you
fun.
something. Enough to make somebody turn their shit green. Green.
Drink grape juice.
Well, yeah, all you really need is
Green.
is to eat kale or something like that. It'll probably come out green, but
Okay, well then I prefer just to eat the kale and not live in a haunted house. There you go. It turned
Smells
green.
pretty bad.
I could stomach that more than living in a haunted house. You know what I'm saying? So
you
what
can
is
read about my story in the best-selling book called "If the Walls Start to Bleed."
What, is that over there?
I've read the book.
Half the book will put you to sleep. It's a cure to insomnia. My part is really good.
Your part was actually well written. I enjoyed it. I mean, it had the typical Peter Leonard spin on it, you know what I mean? Which is kind of amusing and had a nice story to it. And, yeah, I enjoyed it. Have you guys read Peter's book?
I haven't had the opportunity to yet.
You son of a... No.
What's wrong with you
Wow.
people? That was a great book.
I was
But
trying to find it.
Half of it was really good. The other half,
I will say, though, it's 7 years old. When I did see the Revolutionary War soldier walk through the bedroom, I can still see that face if I think about it. I mean, that's how much of an impact that had on my early psyche. And probably why I'm laying on the couch with a blanket and 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on the Paranormal show.
yes.
But no, there was feelings of dread. Something was always behind you. The fact that it was so ice cold you could see your breath in the middle of summer. The orbs, the shadow people moving about. I mean, it was just... I look back at it now, having done the paranormal, and I'm like, Jesus, that was terrifying. I'm surprised I wasn't more afraid than I was when I was living it. Thank
It's
God I
7
didn't know
years
what it
old.
really was.
7 years old, man.
Wow.
I mean, God, 7 years old, thunder and lightning scares kids that age. You had a spirit or a ghost walk right through your house, right through your bedroom. Man, that would have really scared the crap out of me, too, as well. Absolutely.
So I feel for our guest coming on. I mean, I didn't have anything to the level they went through, thank God. But I mean, there was something active in our house. That's interesting. And I mean, I know Kevin had an early experience early on. I mean, it's just these things define who we've become.
Well,
That's true.
we talk about good and we talk about evil. We've seen good and we think we've seen evil. Could you imagine ever being faced with really true evil? I mean, the essence of true evil in your house, plaguing you night after night. It's not like you can't tell it to go away. It just doesn't do that. Going through your whole entire family one by one and affecting them. I mean, that kind of experience just breaks you down over time. And if it weren't for paranormal investigators, the pioneers of this field, like the Warrens, John Zaffis, and many of them, where would these people have turned to?
Yep.
There's not anywhere to go to before them, really.
No, because sometimes you think you escape the house and you leave, and then the problem goes away. But sometimes that's not the case. It follows you. It's with you. It's more interested in being with you than it is being in the home. So what do?
I think years ago they used to go to the church and ask the
Right.
church for help.
Right.
So I
The
guess
church.
what? Well, in a way,
Churches and that. Go ahead, Chris.
oh no, I was gonna say so. And I guess years ago, in a way, the church was kind of the paranormal investigator. Because they're the ones that would come and help, I guess. But
Well, yeah, but how long could you stay at the church?
that's true.
You know
gotta
what
go back
really
out.
helped us? Do you know what really helped us? And I don't mean this to sound funny because you're going to laugh as soon as I say it. Ghostbusters.
The movie?
Yes. And what I mean by that, it was maybe 2 or 3 years, it came out after I had my experience. They did it in such a comical way that it took the fear away. Like I know a few episodes ago we talked about the Hollywood movies and stuff. Poltergeist, the movie, effed me up. Even to this day, it's still effed me up. But once you've seen like Ghostbusters, it's like well, maybe they're not that scary. Maybe the cute marshmallow man, sure, he can kill you, but it's just funny. And I think that alleviated a lot of stress.
Yeah.
But I also think that's why growing up, and don't hate me, I know you're all horror movie fans, I've never watched Friday the 13th. I've never watched anything with Freddy. I've never watched any of the Michael Myers. I haven't seen any of them.
Yeah.
And probably for that reason, because I didn't want to see the horror or supernatural part of it. Does that make sense? I mean, I don't...
No, it makes sense.
It does. Yeah, it does. I mean, I think you'd find them more comical than anything else. I don't think they're really that scary, but...
Now.
Yeah, now you would.
The Exorcist was a scary movie, man. That's the one that make you, like, turn off the lights and you hear something, like, you know, turn your light on for about a week before you actually went to bed. So let me tell you a little story of our guest, okay? So if there's anything we want to discuss before she comes on at 7:30, okay? So tonight we're bringing in Carmen Reed, and she's going to have a story to tell us, okay? She is known for being the real-life mother portrayed in the theatrical released movie, The Haunting, Connecticut. Also, A Haunting, Connecticut, Haunting Revisited, the book In a Dark Place. These renditions of her story cannot tell all that happened in the house in Southington, Connecticut, 30 years ago. So we're talking about a case that's like 30 years old. It's still got some momentum. If you've seen or are familiar with this story, you still don't know what happened in that house. Carmen's going to feel the need to tell her story to help people know the truth about what evil is, as well as challenge the idea that man is the supreme beings in this or any other realm of existence. While living in that house, her, the family, thought they knew all the boundaries. She thought, I'm reading her bio, guys, sorry here. So essentially, she's going to tell us what true evil was. She spent the past 30 years searching for answers, learning everything she could on what happened to her. She's tried to help others while they're on their journey to understanding as well. And she's still talking about this particular case today. That's how impactful it's been. Now, if you've watched the case and you've watched the movie, if you've seen her do any lectures, there's so much to this case. The documentary exposes you to some of it. The movie exposes you to some of it. Of course, puts the Hollywood thing on it. You know, bodies fall out of the walls, and you know, Freddy Krueger's hanging from the chandelier. You know, that's Hollywood, right? You read the book goes even darker and deeper. And if you listen to her stories, you can't help but know that she's honest and sincere when she's talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on this case? 30 years old, and we're still talking about it.
Well, to me, it makes it seem like, you know, it adds, like, the legitimacy of it. Obviously, something was there, or else it wouldn't have lasted as long as it has. Not only the movie side, but, you know, the actual story itself.
Yeah, I feel that Hollywood's portrayals of it and the push that Hollywood has given the story itself has really kept that case alive. So you got to give credit to that. But I mean, even without it, these cases were just enormous cases. I mean, Annabelle, how many years was that like known throughout the paranormal world?
Yep.
Before it even became a movie, just under 10 years ago.
Right.
So, I mean, it falls in the realm. I mean, the Warrens were such a push in the paranormal, and they handled these huge cases, but that was because there was nobody else out there that would handle these cases the Warrens and John Zaffis actually did.
Yep.
Imagine what you would have to be involved with in order to get your case bumped up to the Warrens.
Yeah, really.
You know, I mean, we're talking more than things going bump in the night. We're talking about something that gets put on their radar, where they actually get a priest involved, and they actually bring in a paranormal team. They were actually staying there, too, as well. How many cases have we been involved in where we actually stayed on the premises night after night, or switched out to observe, you know, watch cameras throughout the night? I mean, we normally, as a team, we go in, we investigate, sometimes more than once, and sometimes during the day, sometimes at night, to put together a story so that we can come up with some type of results, some type of findings, or even possibly evidence of what they're experiencing. This is a hardcore case, really hardcore case. I mean, we have many people tell us, "Oh, I heard a scratch, I got scratched, I heard a knock, I saw a shadow." Now you're talking about, things happening in this case where people were being attacked, very, very dark energies. I mean, this is like completely different than anything we've ever been exposed to.
I think this could happen to anybody's house, and when you see the information, you're not looking at it it happened to them, but it could happen to anybody. And where would you turn and who would you ask?
Yeah.
Where would you go? If someone brought this information to this group and said, "This is what's going on in my home," how would you answer them?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
What would you say to them? Would you want to go in? Oh.
I think basically we as a team assess anything that comes our way and discuss how we want to approach it. And normally Kevin will have questions that needs to be answered. Pete will have questions that needs to be answered, and other members of the group. Once we try to get those answered, we then kind of put together a case profile, and then we try to make an appointment to sit down with people and do a consultation. The consultation will let us hopefully go into their home, into their environment, talk with them, see what they're experiencing, have them show us around, see if we get pick up any sensitivity, we notice anything. Many times we bring in some handheld equipment, take some readings to see what we're dealing with. And then we start to kind of follow that case. So if things are escalated or things are going on, we make sure that they report to us and let us know. Then once we feel that it's completely legit as a group, we then reach out to someone in our organization. Like Kevin's just set up the last investigation for us. Yeah. And we go in and we set up a time convenient for us, because many of us work, and convenient for the property owners, and we go in and do an investigation. And sometimes it's more than one part. Sometimes we go and we don't experience a lot, but we find a little piece of evidence or something that makes us believe a little bit more that what's going on with the homeowners or the property owners is valid. And then we continue to go back. And sometimes we've done cases where we've been investigated 5 or 6 times before we've come up to any type of solution. Most of the time, when we get done, we bring the evidence or findings to the homeowners, and they don't really want a resolution. They're just like, "Oh, okay, so we're not crazy. So this is what you're finding." Okay. What's so important about it is that Pete, when he does the historical perspective, that investigation, that he can correlate facts of what happened there to some of the findings that we come up with, and there's some type of correlation. It possibly could have been someone that lived there a long time ago. And usually when that happens, people are like, "Oh, okay, I'm cool with that." But then there are the ones that are not cool with it, and then they're looking for a solution. And then we have to figure out what to do. We have to reach out to people that we know. John Zaffis is one of them. We can possibly reach out to clergy. We can actually reach out to other paranormal groups that we have a working relationship with them, kind of get some insight. So I think we kind of uncover all the stones before we try to come up with an answer and some type of, prescribed remedy.
Yeah, the other big part of being paranormal investigators is, we can't just have knowledge of the paranormal and just history. I mean, we really have to be people persons. I mean, we have to be able to read into these people that are calling us or reaching out to us and say, hey, maybe they need more help than we can give them. There's a lot of things that can push people to the brink of, I have something wrong in my house, when really they might be reaching out because they're lonely, they're grieving, anything. So, yeah. I mean, you got to open your eyes as an investigator and say, it's a little bit more than just being a paranormal investigator if you're in this field.
I agree. And we've had many cases where we've gone in and we found the cause of the activity wasn't even paranormal related. It was something in the environment. So, I mean, high EMF can cause some really crazy things with people. Obviously, then you've got mental illness, you've got drugs, you've got, grief. Grief is a strong mechanism that basically, if you lose someone that was so important in your life and you're just impacted by it, and essentially it affects you that much, there's no telling what the mind can do. You know, there really, really isn't. I mean, we've been involved in cases like that. So I think the underlying thing not so much is the paranormal as it is being the investigator and investigating, you know. And we've reached, I mean, you can ask Kevin, you have to reach out to other people that aren't even in the paranormal to basically, you know, people who are electricians, people who are mental health, you know, specialists, anything to help answer a question, to help anybody, you know, and that's really what it's about, getting them help. And we do a lot of these events that we do because we're trying to raise awareness and have people step forward if they're having a problem, but also many people are interested in this field. We want to have them exposed to it so they can understand it and learn it, you know, and be educated, you know, and so that's kind of the goal with that. And plus we raise money for historical, you know, preservation and businesses. So that's such an important aspect of, you know, what we do in our skill set. So,
Yeah.
Grief is very difficult for people because there isn't a lot of places for you to go because you feel embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
When grief occurs, there's multiple things that can happen. One is your health can deteriorate quickly. The other thing is your mind deteriorates. And they've done studies, and some folks have cancer due to grief. It's direct as a correlation to grief. If you've never had a chance to let go of the grief, you've had it in your system, cancer will trigger itself inside of you, and people have that. And it's just one of the things that happen.
I never thought of it that way. 2018, I lost my dad. That was the first really important, close person I've ever lost in my life. Mm-hmm. I think I'm more equipped to deal with it now. If this happened 25 years ago, I don't think I would have been so well equipped. So I think different points and different stages in your life, you deal with things differently. So, it's tough. It's a tough thing, man. We feel for people who've lost someone. And we try to have the same respect when we do an investigation. If we believe that it is someone that's causing the paranormal activity, someone that has passed, someone that was attached to somebody, we're very respectful of that and very understanding. And that's kind of how we do things. Now, that's not to say all the paranormal groups do that. Some go in, they're very antagonistic, and they want to challenge, and, you know, there's a demon here. Someone got scratched. It's like, you know, the last thing that I think of whenever I walk into a place to do an investigation so far is anything to do with a demon, okay? Yeah. Absolutely not. You know, have we come across things that we think could be, you know, demonic entities? Yeah, possibly. But, I mean, it could just be really bad people. Really bad in life and really bad in death. Yeah. It's like, you know, so it's very tough. But when you talk about a case like this one that happened 30 years ago with Carmen Reed and her family, you're talking about every member in that family getting affected by this one way or the other. Some physically attacked, some emotionally attacked. And it's just, it wears you down. That's the intent of what this does, to wear you down. I don't know if it's the steps of possession. I don't know if it just like someone that's in the group, in that family, or it just wanted him out of there. So hopefully Carmen's going to shed a little bit more light on this case for us. It's a fascinating case, and to hear the story told by her makes it that much more interesting. You know?
Honestly, I would like her on our team, because think about this. What a strong-willed person she has to have been. Not only are you dealing with the tragic illness of your son, you're dealing with this, excuse my language, shit on top of it. Yeah. And you're balancing both of them. My God, that's worth respect. That's
absolutely, Pete. I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you. I mean, any more than that. It's just, she was basically holding that family together. She was like the foundation of that family. Obviously, her husband had to go out of town to work a lot, so she was the glue that kept everything together. Then you throw in something like a paranormal problem. It's like you have an enemy that's attacking you from all sides. You can't see it. You know, I mean, you can't feel it. I mean, what do you do? You know, it's like being pinned down by a sniper, but you don't know where the bullets are coming. You know?
How many people were affected? It was herself, her husband, and her 3 children? And then a niece got affected?
There was a niece also that was exposed to it. So, it's an interesting story. But to walk out of that and to be so appreciative of life and so nice and kind as she is, can you imagine that? I'm not sure I would be that way. I probably would be kind of like angry and messed up a little bit, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And again, affects different people, you know, differently. So, and that's what I really like about her. She's just just a good soul. And to have been exposed to something so evil, to walk out of there and keep all humanity about yourself is an amazing thing, as far as I'm concerned.
Pete, before they start, are you going to get a couple more sandwiches? I finished the one. I've been watching them.
I know. I'm like, Jesus, I've already gone through 2.
I've just been watching you. Every time they zoom in on you, there's another one gone.
Pete's a show within himself. Pete could set up a camera on his couch, and people would sit there and watch Pete all day long, just eating a sandwich, scratching his privates,
If
soda on the fridge. It's a whole show by itself.
I thought he was sick when he was laying down. I thought I was going to feel bad for him.
No.
Don't ever feel bad for me, no.
Are you ill or you're scratching? I can tell, but are you ill?
Mentally, yes. No.
Well, yeah.
I just thought it would be funny.
You scratched yourself and we lost 5 viewers.
Now we need those 5 viewers, Peter. So you got to keep up on your game here, my man.
I'm sending you guys another unhappy face on Facebook. There. See ya? Boom.
Aw.
Pete, the only guy in our group that brings a bat to an investigation for a snack.
Twice.
Please don't set me up with a bad joke like that. Okay.
All right, so I guess we're going to be moving ahead as our guest is preparing to jump on board with us.
I'll behave. I'll just sit here and eat.
Yep, she's here.
And there she is. Hi, Carmen.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, Carmen.
How are you?
Oh, wonderful. How are you doing tonight?
I'm wonderful.
So whereabouts are you located now?
Johnson City, Tennessee.
Johnson City, Tennessee. Been down through Tennessee. Beautiful country down there.
Oh, I love it.
I did. I used to live in Seymour, and it was beautiful.
It is.
Yep.
So thank you for coming on the show. So appreciative. And it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in years.
It's been more than 15 years, I think.
I
hasn't
know.
Wow.
It has. You look great.
Thank you. A lot older, but
Yeah. We were just talking about age. About a half hour ago, we determined I'm the oldest. Well, until Vinny came on the show. I was the
Until
oldest guy
me.
in the group.
And I'm the youngest.
and I'm the oldest now.
I don't know if you can see everyone's name on there, but I've got Chris, Kevin, Maeve, and Pete, and Vinny. We're all part of my group. And the group is Agent Paranormal, which we each formed just last year, pretty much. We're all co-founders of the group. And we've known each other for a number of years. And Peter, Kevin, and myself have all investigated together numerous times. John Zaffis has met every one of us.
Yep.
I don't know how much you keep in contact with John these days, but...
I just saw him a couple of months ago.
Oh, wow.
I went and did a show up in upstate Connecticut.
Okay.
Upstate Connecticut?
I cannot remember the name of the town. It's it starts with a W.
Oh, West Haven?
No, it's further north. It's not on the coast.
Very nice. Very nice. So thank you for calling in. So we were just chatting a little bit. I don't know if you saw the show or not, but we were chatting a little bit talking about you and your story and how fascinating it is. I remember meeting you, sitting down and having a discussion with you at a restaurant. It was actually in Utica, New York area. You came up and did a lecture, and we sat down, and you actually had that statue of Mary that was melted.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
You talk about pulling something out at dinner and just creeping people out. Oh, by the way, here's a statue of Mary.
I brought this to John.
Yeah. What's wrong with it? I mean, would you hit it with a torch? You go, no, it came out of the case because of what was going on in the house. It's like, all right, that's not creepy at all. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, I don't think anyone else wanted to talk after that.
Just kind of like, check.
Can I tell you what happened to me yesterday?
Please share.
We would love it.
Okay, yesterday, I'm watching my grandchildren during this COVID lockdown because their parents are, well, my daughter's a nurse practitioner and the other one makes medicine out of plasma. So I'm watching my grandchildren and they eat me out of house and home. So I went to the grocery store to restock on their goodies, Reese's cups and stuff like that.
And good stuff.
Yeah, I'm a good nana. Fudgesicles, yeah. So I come back home. I was listening to some Christian music on the way because I am. And on the way back, I was listening to this song. It was called When You Lived, You Loved Me by Casting Crowns. And I come in the house and I got the cold stuff first and I'm rushing in to put it on the counter so I can put it in the freezer. And behind me comes a footstep on the door frame, a heavy footstep, and kind of a joyful energy. And it was whistling that very same song that I just listened to. And I said, babe, I was just listening to that song. And I turned around and nobody was there. So at our age, we always have to make a pit stop to the bathroom first before we do anything else. So I went back to the master bathroom to see if he was in there, and there was no one there. So I went outside. First I looked around the house, and I went upstairs in his office. And I said, did you just come in the kitchen and whistling Casting Crowns, When You Lived, You Loved Me? And he's like, I don't even know that song. And he was on the phone.
Wow.
So nobody was whistling that. But it was very, very on pitch. It was a great whistler. You know, there's not many great whistlers anymore because people don't go around whistling anymore.
I'm not even sure I'm a good whistler at all. So
I can't whistle.
I stink at it, so don't ask me. You may just get a when I whistle.
So we were talking about, the fudgesicles and the Reese's and all that kind of good stuff. I'm trying to figure out how long it's going to take me to get to Johnson City here by car because I think I want to come hang out with you during the whole pandemic. So
listen to what else I got them today. It came in the UPS. I got them a bull for the pool, and it's for adults really. And you climb on it and you shake it and it bucks like a bull.
Oh wow!
Oh my gosh!
So when are you going to be here?
It's going to take me 11 hours and 33 minutes if I leave right now, according to Google Maps. So, a couple stops for gas, and I'm older too, so I got to use the restroom quite a bit. So
you can relate to that.
Yeah, I'll probably be there by Thursday, maybe.
The weather may improve by then, so
I hope so. Well,
and then we could go. Then we could go check out the Civil War and Yankee cemetery. I've been wanting to investigate that a lot.
Yeah, we like cemeteries. Trust me.
Civil War.
Yeah.
So for managers listening, I won't be in tomorrow.
11 hours and 33 minutes, Pete. Want to join me?
I don't know. I heard the rest areas are all closed.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's
we might
true,
get there by Saturday then.
Yeah.
But there's lots of McDonald's along the way, so
Yeah, well,
that's what I always do.
I've traveled with Pete many times, and we stop at many McDonald's anytime we go anywhere. So he probably has an app that if you can punch in the location, will show all the McDonald's on the way down, so we can route that directly out that way.
John has a DD app, I understand. So.
Oh God, he's like addicted to Dunkin' Donuts coffee. It used to be so bad. It's like it's midnight. Hey, you guys want to go get a coffee? it's midnight. So, yes, no, I'm not going to read here. I'm like, no, it's midnight. I'm going to bed. I have to get up at like 7 for, the conference we were at, I think. And he's like, all right, I guess the old man's going by himself, and he would take off to Dunkin' Donuts.
Well, he used to buy those big boxes of coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I could see him stopping before he went and did a lecture at Dunkin' Donuts, buying a box of Joe, setting it on that console in between the seats, and just driving for 6 hours, just tapping that like it's a keg full of coffee. Or possibly even having it gravity fed so it kind of goes around a little helmet. So he can just
You
suck
got to
on
get
it
him
the whole
that for
time.
his birthday.
Yeah. Now that that's out, somebody will probably throw that on there before I do. But I don't know if he drinks as much coffee as he did. I think he might have slowed down a little bit.
I think his doctors made him.
Yeah, I think it's probably a medical advice is what caused it. So
Yeah.
It was after we almost killed him in Salem. You remember that milkshake?
Yeah. So we bump into John every once in a while. He was actually a guest in our show a few months ago. He talked. I mean, it was great. I mean, I didn't want to stop the show. He just talked for like an hour. It was amazing.
Yeah.
He was just so happy and just talkative, and it was a great episode. Everybody really liked it. And we talked about your case a little bit. But when it comes to John will only tell you so much. He's kind of...
Because he can't remember.
I hope he's not watching tonight.
Hi, John.
I was
just
going to
seen
say...
an angry face on Facebook float up, so maybe...
He's on to you.
I remind him of stuff all the time. He's like, oh, I forgot about that. I'm like, see? That's what you got me for.
Yeah, there you go. So let me ask you a question. Tell me your first experience meeting John Zappis. Since we're talking about John, this must have been like 30 years ago, right?
It was 31, I believe. Now it's 32 years ago. But
Wow.
when the first night I met John was the night after I called the Warrens, and I called Lorraine Warren at 3:00 in the morning and told her my story of what had happened that night. And they came out the very next day around 5. It was already dark. And he came in with a group of other people. And the law of attraction, he was the only one I trusted in that group.
Really?
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Wow. Did he have his Jesus Christ hair in his cut-off T-shirt? And his,
he actually looked like a demon.
Cut off. So I saw that picture. You've got to see this picture. I don't know where I saw it. I think his wife showed it to me. I've never seen it. Just changed my whole world when I saw that picture.
Yeah,
Jesus
he kind
Christ
of looked
John.
like a demon. I thought he looked more like a demon. No, I'm just kidding. He kind of reminded me of a teacher back then with his hair all crazy, like one of these liberal teachers, the beard and all that. Yeah. But he was the only one that I felt trust with because he gave me answers.
Really?
And he was very kind and soft-spoken, which is not normally John, as you know.
No, I was going to say a lot of things changed in 31 years.
No, it was just that he seemed to sense that that's what I needed at that time. I needed someone calm. And I don't know if you've ever met Ed and Lorraine Warren. That's never expletive that you might use about them. Calm.
Really?
No, they're not calm at all, especially Ed Warren.
Really?
And John sat, and when I asked him about what that was, he would have an answer. It may not have been right because I don't know, but that's what I still use. Is what he sat and talked to me. He was sitting. He had his polo shirt on and khakis, and he was sitting. No, I think he had jeans on. He was sitting at the end of the table, and me and Tammy both sandwiched him, my niece Tammy, and we just picked his brain as much as we could. But Lorraine kept trying to sway us to her and Ed, but we were more interested in John because we were drawn to him. And he stayed in the house for 9.5 weeks, put up with a lot of stuff.
9.5 weeks he was there?
Wow.
That's how long it took. From
But the movie's only an hour and a half.
Oh. And I lived there 2 years, so guess what was on the cutting room floor?
I could imagine.
Yeah, right.
I could imagine hours and hours of stuff that they cut out of the movie. I did watch the movie, but I think what kind of ruined it for me is I watched the documentary on Discovery Channel. I thought that was an amazing documentary. And, I mean, was that pretty point on, the Discovery version? Was it?
Yes, me and John had more control on that than we did anything else. Now, they had to consolidate a lot of stuff because, like I said, there was 8.5 hours on the cutting room floor of information, of the interview that I gave them. And they had me in shadows because my kids were still in school at the time. And I didn't want them tormented any more than they had already been. So I was in a shadow or disguised, but you can't disguise my voice. And John was actually played himself on there. So, but
yeah, he's a movie star after I saw that. Look at you. You're on TV. So the Warrens responded quickly then to your call.
They were there the next day, yes. What I told them, I don't know how much of my case you remember, but what happened that night was Tammy came knocking at the bedroom door, and she says, "Aunt Carmen, it's happening again." And when you go to the door and she's doing a pee-pee dance because she's so excited and scared, I had grabbed my bedside Bible, and I walked around with her. And what she was talking about when it happened again, it would be pulling at her undergarments and trying to pull them, like undressing her. And I went around to the bedroom. It was like a horseshoe shape, the house was, and her bedroom was the very last one across from mine. And I went in there and I opened the book wherever it opened, and it opened to Psalms 24. And I started reading it. And as I read it, she sat up in bed and she said, "Aunt Carmen, it's coming, it's coming. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? It's coming." And I could feel an energy, but at that time I didn't recognize energies very much. And I thought it was her fear more than anything else. And she wrapped around me and I peeled her off. And that happened 3 times. I'd start reading louder and faster, and she'd wrap around me again. And the 3rd time I peeled her off of me, I saw underneath her shirt. I mean, I don't know if you can see my shirt. You could see the fingernail beds and the knuckles. It's exactly what I saw, and it laughed this hideous and went through the back wall. Well, I mean, I was floored. It's like every ounce of blood in me drained out, and I grabbed hold of her, and I ran around the front of the house and called my priest. Well, an associate pastor answered, and he said, "Say the rosary and call me in the morning." Well, Tammy was wearing a rosary around her neck, so I reached for it. And when I did, I was left holding just the crucifix. The beads shattered, and they strewn across 2 rooms. And I bent down, and I'm not even sure why I did, and I picked one up, and I looked at it, and the prongs were pulled perfectly straight. I mean, you couldn't do that with a tool. And now I'm really confused. I mean, everything I believed in is thrown on the floor, and I don't know what to do at this point. I'm just lost. But I know I've got to protect these children. This is my family. I'm mom, and I got to take care of it. So I did what all Southern women did, and I put a pot of tea on. And as that happened, Tam says, "It's coming. Can you feel it?" And at that point, I recognized the energy, and I can feel it building really harsh. And I ran towards her, and she ran towards me, and we met in the kitchen. And this black cloud, I call it that because I don't have another term for it, engulfed us. And it was like, you know, the movies where they show somebody spinning around and around and around, and like there's no form or reason or rhyme. It was like that, in confusion in my mind. We weren't actually spinning, but my head was spinning because I don't know what this is. I did have the scientific mind to say, well, there's no temperature change, and I don't feel anything on my skin. But other than that, I've lost my mind. And after that, I ran into the bedroom where my husband was. And I jumped on the bed with my feet, which I never done that before. And I said, "This house is haunted." And my husband at the time said, oh, the kids have got you believing this nonsense now too. And at that point, someone at work had given me an article, a newspaper article that had the Warrens' phone number and contact information in it. I called them at 3 a.m.
Oh.
And Lorraine answered, I think on like third or fourth ring. And I told her what had happened that night. And she didn't tell me a prayer or anything to say, but she said she would be out the next day, her and her team. Well, about that time, Al calls me and he says, Carmen, I know the house is haunted. I've known for months. He says, at night I can hear this horrific music coming from the basement and whispering. And I've been going downstairs with a 30-06 looking for someone. And I'm thinking my children are down there. And he said, I realized that I was so afraid that I could hurt one of the boys, so I started carrying a bat. And I'm thinking, well, that's a lot better, a bat. But he said nothing was ever in there. He said he thought he would catch Philip throwing a party down there. But nothing was ever there.
Now, so you moved to this town, and you rented this house out. And did you know at the time it was a funeral parlor years ago?
No, actually, I was actually going to look at another townhouse, and I decided, because it was the last of the listings that was in the paper, that I was going to rent this house regardless, or this property regardless. And I got there, and the bedrooms were so small, you couldn't even fit a twin bed in there, let alone
Really?
3 children. I mean, it was horribly small. I don't know how anything fit in there. It'd have to be a crib bed. And so I was very disappointed. And on the way back, I saw that for rent sign outside that big, huge Colonial. And I said, well, I know I can't afford this, but I got to try. It turned out they had turned it into a 2-family house. And it was in my price range.
So you move in. How long did it take before things started to take place? Paranormal things.
Actually, things started before we moved in. I had taken Phil for his cancer treatments. And we stopped in to clean a little bit in the apartment when he said it was mostly finished, but they were still doing a few things. And when I went in there, I had spick and span and a mop and a bucket and Philip. And I told him, I said, you go pick out your bedroom that you want. And he went wandering around the house, and I put the mop water on the floor, and it immediately turned to this thick red ooze that squished up between my toes, because I mop barefooted. And it squeezed up between my toes, and I was confused, and I'm standing there. I've broken the floor, you know. I just used spick and span. And I called the lady that was doing the molding on the inside of the front bedroom, the living room. And she come in, and she bent down, and she smelled it and walked out the back door, never said a word, and never came back.
Wow.
And Philip came in a few minutes after I had taken paper towels to clean that up and didn't finish mopping the floor. I guess you can figure out why. But I didn't finish mopping the floor. I cleaned that up, and Philip came up, and I'm sitting there thinking, what could that be? You know? And he came in, he was shaking, and he said, Mom, we have to leave this house. And I said, son, this is our new home. We have to live here. I couldn't find anything else. And he said, Mom, this place is evil. And at the time, I believed that evil lived in the hearts of man. And that's what I told him. I said, this house is made of brick and mortar and wood. And if it could talk, it could probably tell some great stories, but it can't be evil. It's just a building. And that's what I said to him. And he told me, you're going to find out.
Really? So he picked up on something?
Yeah. It called his name. It called him by name in a whisper tone. It would say, Philip.
Wow.
Yeah, that would have made me enough to run out the building. So, and I've heard my name called before on investigations, and it's still creepy. Whether I'm standing next to 15 people or by myself, it's still creepy. So,
Well, He was 13 at the time, well, about 14, and he'd just been diagnosed with cancer, and he was going through a horrific ordeal, going through the chemo and the radiation. He had to face his own mortality at a very young age.
Yeah.
And I often struggle with putting him in that position on top of what he already was, but I really didn't know.
It's amazing. Now, backing up, you said it was a 2-family house?
Yes.
So were there other people renting the other side?
Yes, it was actually upstairs, and the director lived upstairs and raised his son there. So the whole time that building was in use, there was a family living above the funeral home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I saw when I initially rented it. But he had promised that to a preacher, the landlord. Mm-hmm. And he hadn't heard from that guy for a period of time, so he gave it to me. Well, then when that guy came back in the picture, he says, Carmen, I'll put as many rooms as you need downstairs. I know I promised you the upstairs, but I'm going to have to put you in the downstairs. And that's how we wound up in the morgue property instead of the director's property.
Okay. So was he living there the whole time all this was going on?
Yes. Well, he only lived there less than 6 months.
Okay.
And nobody stayed in that apartment very long at all.
Did any?
And nobody will come forward and tell their stories either. I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
They don't want to tell their stories.
Well, yeah, I mean, the ridicule that they could face. You know, it's not an easy thing. People who witness the paranormal, like even something like Bigfoot or UFOs, I mean, they get ridiculed. And
Oh, yeah.
are there some people who are a little bit off their rocker that witness this stuff? Sure there are. But are there a lot of credible people that have these experiences? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you know, it comes down to it. People are like, well, it's a hoax, it's this, it's that. Well, you got to really kind of take a look at the people that had the experience. And you'll find out there's a lot of credible people that experience this type of stuff. You know?
Well,
I mean, you have to weed through that and figure that out.
Well, there's a lot of nuts people that experience stuff, and because they're nuts, people don't believe them. But that doesn't mean they didn't experience something.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. It's just when they come forward, people are like, yeah, okay, you know?
Yeah.
And then somebody with credibility comes forward and they're like, oh, okay, maybe we're onto something. So
Yeah.
it's an
Usually they get
unfortunate
together and
sometimes.
form a paranormal group.
Yeah. Ta-da! You're talking
There's all
to.
those nuts.
Okay, so you get in touch with the Warrens. The Warrens come out. What did they do? What was their process? I mean, John was there like 9.5 weeks. Interview. Okay.
Well, the first thing they do is interview you. They came in, I guess there was around a dozen people that came in. And Lorraine was the only female I recall. They had video cameras and recorders, and they recorded every word I said. Where the video and stuff went, I don't know. John doesn't even know where that is. But they videotaped me talking, and my niece talking, and my husband talking. And Lorraine walked through the house, and this is where a funny thing happened. I had a ferret, and down in the morgue there was a blood tank, because you cannot put blood into the sewer system because blood cannot be separated out. So they store it in a tank. And where the blood tank was, there was a depression covered with sawdust and a pallet over it. Well, my ferret used to go under there whenever there was activity going on. Well, Lorraine was walking through the house with her hands out and just walking through, discerning, and she got into the morgue, and she got near that back wall over by the body lift, and all of a sudden Missy felt comfortable enough to come out and started chasing Lorraine Warren up the front stairs, and she's screaming, "A rat! A rat! A rat is after me!" I'm laughing so hard that I can't tell her it's not a rat, it's a ferret. And so I picked Missy up, and I took her upstairs, and she got in her purse. So I had to take Missy and put her in her cage. She was going to roll the woman.
So we all, just about all of us here on this call, met John Zaffis. We know his demeanor. Tell us a little bit about the Warrens. What kind of people were they? Were they a little exotic? I mean,
They were eccentric, yeah.
Eccentric is a better word. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Would they get along well? Were they kind of difference of opinion, or were they like kind of a happy couple, like agreeing with each other?
No, it's more the polar opposite. She
Really?
had an opinion, and he had an opinion, and it's whoever could get the loudest that won. No, Ed won most of the time, but Lorraine was very gifted psychic, and he would defer to her on some things, but when it came to control, he was the man in control. He made the final decision. And he did it loudly if he couldn't get it any other way. I know that there was somebody that came to the house, and there was some kind of altercation, and Ed got really loud, and he was very protective of me. But he was very protective of me. So I'm grateful for that.
That's interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, this is a case that I remember talking to John about where he came to face with something that scared the bejesus out of him, where he left the paranormal. What do you recall about what happened? I mean, I heard his story, but...
Well, he was walking through the house, and there had been a lot of activity that day. There was mostly a knock he was chasing. Pardon me for a second. He was chasing a knock. And he was basically went off by himself towards where my niece's bedroom was. And something he saw there, and it came flying back out, and then something on the steps he saw. And it was coming down the steps at him. And he went out the back door. He didn't say a word. He just walked out the back door, went and got in his truck and left.
Wow. That was it.
He was gone for 3 days. He was gone for 3 days. And I know that day had been a very tough day because I'd experienced a lot. And Ed was there at the same time. Ed Warren walked out behind him. And I get some kind of a discussion ensued. And there was like a bright sun above the back garage that we don't know what it was. It was just a bright light. And John left, and he didn't come back until after he got his son christened. Wow. And then he parked. The driveway was also a horseshoe, and he pulled in, and he'd drive all the way around and park to where he'd be in the street in a half a second for the rest of the 9.5 weeks.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. His little Toyota truck, red Toyota truck.
He had a Toyota truck. Interesting. All these things we're finding out about you, John Zaffis, that we didn't know. I wish I had this conversation years ago. I could have used so much against him over the years.
Oh, I got more, too.
Oh, well, hey, we got time.
We talked about the ferret. One night we'd had a really rough night, and it was almost dawn, and he laid down to try and get a few minutes sleep because he had to work at the time. And I was laying on the bed, my husband was laying on the bed, and we're just all trying to get a little bit of rest. And all of a sudden, Missy comes up, and she's in the bottom of his blanket, and she's going up the blanket. You just see a bump under the blanket, and he's going, I'm laughing so hard again, I can't tell him it's the ferret, and all of a sudden the ferret come out and touched him on the nose. He nearly had a heart attack that night.
Man, if iPhones are around then, that would have been a great video to capture. That would have been priceless.
Oh, yeah, it had gone viral.
Yeah, in the paranormal community, it would have gone viral. So, we talked about some of the comical things and interesting things here, but what was the most horrific thing that happened in this? The most
to
horrific
me personally?
thing. To you or to the family, anyone?
Well, there was a lot of horrific things that happened. But one of the most horrific things that happened to me was the night I was taken out of my body, and I was taken to a place called the Desert Road of Hot Tears. And what initially happened is we couldn't smoke in the house, and we all smoked at that time. I quit right after that. But what happens is the smoke can be used by the entities to form things that scare the fire out of you. So we had to smoke outside. We'd been smoking, and we came back in. I went to bed, and the researchers were in there. John was not there that night. There's other researchers. And my husband had this habit of squeezing my hand before he went to sleep. Well, he squeezed my hand. I didn't squeeze it back. And he said, something's wrong with Carmen. And I wasn't there. I'd been taken somewhere else. I was in a deep hole. I call it a well because I don't have another term for it. And I was just suspended in midair. And I was being insulted by this demon. He was, I can describe him, he had black hair and narrow eyes and a very narrow nose and no lips. You know, the people with no lips? He had no lips. And he was yelling at me that my Christianity was all a hoax, that it wasn't real, that God was dead, that Jesus was not going to save me, that I belonged to him and he could do anything. And he's used a lot of expletives, lots of them, during this time. And I just kept saying the Lord's Prayer, because I didn't have anything else to rely on. I just said that over and over and over and over again. And finally, a female, just the polar opposite of him. I mean, they looked identical, but she was female and it was male, female. And she helped him, and they were both shouting at expletives of me. And I continued to pray the Lord's Prayer. And finally, they dropped me. And when they dropped me, I landed in this sandy spot. I actually posted pictures of some black sand that I saw in Panama because it reminded me of that place. It was like water swept, and it was all wavy. And when I landed there, I was on this path, and as I started to walk through the path, there were these blobs. Kind of looked like snowmen, only one larger and one smaller, not 3 parts, a 2-part. And they were all negative human emotions. There was one that was so vile that I moved far as I could away from him because it was so disgusting. I didn't want to get near and feel that energy. Then there was sadness, and there was anger, and there was vengeance, and there was all kinds of negativity. And then there was this one huge one that was hopeless, and I never experienced that kind of hopelessness. And I could feel what they were feeling. It was like you said, we communicate telepathically, but it was permeated my skin. I could feel exactly what they were feeling. And I thought, I'm going to hug this entity. And I started to leave the path, and I heard a whisper, it's a trick. Don't leave the path. You'll be trapped for eternity. And I listened to it. I listened to the whisper because I'd been hearing shouts all day. And I stopped. And then I could hear the people above me praying. And they were praying and saying, come back, come back, come back. And they said, look for the light. And there was no light. And they said, look for the light. And then just a tiny speck of light happened. And then it turned into a dove and then to a man. And I was back in my bed. And I'd been gone 8.5 hours. And I was so exhausted, I couldn't tell them anything that had happened at that point. I just needed to sleep. And they said that my face contorted and my neck got all black and had a lump on it. And I reached around and I turned on my side to sleep, and somebody held my hand with both his hands. And he had a gold watch, and he had black hair on his arms, but his skin was very pale. And he held my hand all night. And when I woke up in the morning, he was still holding my hand. And I stretched, and I got up, and I went into the dining room, and I said, John, because he had come in the morning. He had the morning shift. I said, John, thank you for holding my hand all night. And he said, I didn't hold your hand. So I went to the other 2 researchers, and I said, thank you for holding my hand all night. It was very comforting. They said, we didn't hold your hand all night.
Wow.
That's incredible.
You know, it's interesting because we call this, the haunting or a haunting in Connecticut. It's more like an attack is what it sounds like to me.
You have no idea.
Attack on spirituality, it's That's really what it comes down to. We think of a haunting as like, ooh, something's going on. There's maybe a ghost or something in there, and these people are being plagued with noises or seeing things, or being scared. But this is just an attack, just a callous, well-planned assault on you and your family is what it comes down to.
That happened every day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If I wanted to go to work, my car wouldn't run. I must have put 4 starters on that car in that time because they like to attack the electrical systems. And why that is, I guess they get energy from it. I don't know. But my starter, I remember the day that the story broke in Current Affair, or not a Current Affair, the Hartford Current. And the Hartford Current broke that story that day, and I took Jennifer and AJ to the store with me. Well, on the way around, coming back from the convenience store, the door flew open, and Jennifer fell out. And AJ was reaching for her to grab hold of her. I stopped, and fortunately, she fell on her stomach, so she had soft tissue, and I was turning the corner, so I wasn't moving very fast. And I got her in the back seat, and I strapped her in, and I remember scolding her because I was so frightened. I was scolding her for I don't even know why I scolded her, but I scolded her. And I put her in the back seat, and I got them home, and that door never opened again. Couldn't open it.
So what do you think was the end game with all of this? I mean,
to destroy the family.
Destroy the family.
God created the family, and the family unit has been under attack since the beginning of time, and they are getting close to destroying it. It did destroy my family. We were not together. Me and my ex divorced in 2005. And my son's gone. He's in heaven now, I hope. And, it destroyed the family.
When you left the home, did everything stop?
Yes.
For you? Everything stopped?
For a period of time. I have human spirits and I have positive spirits, and I've had a lot of miracles happen in my life. A lot of miracles happen in my life. Things that are not explainable. Gifts, positive things.
Interesting.
Carmen.
Yeah.
For people that are experiencing this type of stuff, like what kind of advice could you give them?
Well, there's no simple answer for every case. You have to look into what's causing it. You have to find where they gave the authority to this entity to attack them, because you have to give it permission. I gave it permission the day I went down. There's a lot of background noise.
Yeah.
I gave it, the day I gave it permission to me was the day that I put him in a mental hospital. And after they did what they did to him there, to shorten it, I went down into the basement and I said, all right, you SOB, you leave my children alone. If you want to play with me. That gave it permission to attack me. So you have to see where the authority came from, what gave them the authority. Sometimes the authority comes from a parent giving permission for a child to be attacked. Sometimes it's something you've done. Sometimes it's leaving so far from grace that you are given permission to the entity to attack you. You have to look and see what the cause is. The human spirit that comes into a home, like the one I had yesterday, they're very benign. I just let them go on through because they just come in to visit and then they're gone. The human spirits don't bother me at all. I let them go. I get visited all the time by human spirits. I'm aware. I acknowledge that, yes, you were here, but I don't try to find out who they were or what they wanted or anything like that. And that's essential because you can lock them into your house if you pay too much attention to them. So every case is different, and you have to look at it that way.
So what was the I mean, at the conclusion of this, or I'm trying to say here, what was the advice that the Warrens gave you on what to do? I mean, what was their conclusion?
They told me to go through the Catholic Church, because I was a Catholic at the time, and we went through the diocese and got an exorcism done. And we did that, and I didn't have to move at that point because the house was clear. But I knew the way the priest had explained it to me is you're born into a room with no doors. Once that door appears and is opened, even if they close that door and lock it, it can be reopened. And having young children, I was terrified that they would accidentally reopen it through their curiosity or their fear. So we moved. Within weeks after the exorcism, even though, I mean, we could have stayed because the house was clear, but I felt that they could reopen that door at any time. And to be honest, every one of my children have had paranormal experiences since then, but they were mostly benign human experience.
Carmen, I have a question for you. You said that the director lived on the other floor. Were they experiencing anything from...
His son came to my house after the story broke, and he was a teacher in upstate New York. And he told me something that just chilled me to the bone. He said that he lived in it was a completely pine room upstairs with captain's beds built in and lightings and drawers. Looked like a ship's captain, cabin. And it was all pine, knotted pine, beautiful. And he said that he would be in bed every night, terrified, waiting for those dead people to come up and get him. But because nothing ever happened, just imagine living every night terrified. Imagine that.
I'm a funeral director. I've lived in a funeral home my whole life.
Yeah.
60 years of my life I've lived in a funeral home.
Have you ever had any experiences?
Not in our buildings. My girlfriend has. Our main building is very calm. My mother was very welcoming to her. She opened the door for her, my girlfriend, and turned the light off for her. My other building, one of our buildings was extremely, you close the door and you watch the knob turn and the door would reopen as you leave. So you get phone calls that the doors were left unlocked after you locked them. Left the building at night. So I asked the new owner of the building, I sold it to them as an office, and the same doors are unlocking, same doors are opening and closing. You can watch them do it on their own. That building, yes, but it was a very nasty place to be in.
It's pretty amazing, don't you think? Because they didn't actually die there.
In this building, we've had about 5 people die inside the building, but over a long time. Mm-hmm. The other building has had multiple people die in them also.
Well, I don't know if we'll ever understand fully what causes this stuff to happen. We just have to keep studying. Yes?
Carmen, we do have a question from online. They asked that since you've said that you've been visited by many spirits, they wanted to know if you've experienced other spirits before you moved to Connecticut.
No, I had a spirit guide as a child, but I never experienced human spirits or negative experience. I never experienced a ghost. I remember as a kid thinking there was a monster under my bed, but there never was.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced I know your son passed away. Have you ever experienced him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. For the first, I guess, 5 years after he passed, he never hardly left me. But now his boys are becoming men, and I think he's probably spending more time there. I will experiencing him from time to time. Some people thought that the spirit that came to visit me yesterday was him, but no, this was a heavy-footed person. It wasn't my son. It was a big, big man.
We know a few of them. Well, I mean, so can you safely say that essentially that it was a demonic haunting?
Oh, no question. No,
Okay.
no doubt in my mind that it was demonic. I mean, I had a demon's in my face, breathing in my face. And there's no question. The energy is so different. You know how most humans have compassion? Even the meanest of them, they have some kind of, these beings do not have an ounce of compassion. They have nothing but disdain for humanity, and they want destruction of humanity.
Now, what determined that? I mean, what point did the Warrens come to the decision that, like, you know what, this is demonic? You need to get the church involved. I mean, was it just something built up to that, or something just happened? And they made
that
decision?
night, remember that night I told you what happened, and that he laughed that hideous laugh, and he was doing kind of sexual things to my niece, not overtly, but he was doing stuff that he shouldn't have been doing. Well, that night after that, we had to get some sleep, and I'm in the middle, and Al's on one side, and Tam's on one side. Now, remember, I'm the faithful, good Catholic. So they're hiding under me while I'm fighting the demon. He stood we had French doors in the bedroom that went down. There was a staircase in the back that went to the morgue. And there were green shears over that wall, that window, or door. And it stood there, and you could see it standing there. It was bigger than the doors. And he stood there, and he laughed, and he'd growl, and he smelled like rotten flesh and excrement at the same time. And he came through the door, and he laughed that hideous laugh, and he jumped on the bed, and he was a huge 300-pound man, but his feet were the size of cats. And he started pulling up the covers and stinging us. And I'm using my finger because I don't know what he looked like, because I couldn't see him, just a shadow. And I'd slap at him, and he'd slap me back, and I'd slap at him again. I got air, and he got me. So it wasn't fun. And I did that for hours.
God.
So, yeah, it was definitely demonic.
Couldn't even imagine.
The sting, let me describe the sting to you a little bit. And I call it a sting because I don't really know what else to call it. It felt like a barbed shaped thing with many barbs on it, and it would sting you, and it would penetrate, and as it pulled out, you would feel those barbs folding back, and it hurt. It hurt. And he liked to do the feet, but he'd lift up the covers. I mean, you could see the covers lift up, but there was no hand holding it. And then you slap it down, and Tam's pulling her feet up next to me so she don't get stung, and I'm slapping at it to protect her. And it was just a horrific night.
God. Just imagine.
We have another question from online. They asked, why do you think people or yourself would wait so long and it would take so much before you choose to leave? When, she posted saying that she feels she would have left the house after the first day or two.
I went running down the street, and this was the night before the Warrens came. I went running down the street, and Tam was with me, and it was stinging me in my behind. And I was running as fast as I could. I couldn't get away from it. My car wouldn't start. I'd go to work in the phone system, and I'm a computer tech. The computer system would go down. It got to where nobody wanted me around because it would affect them. Where are you going to go? You got I had 4 of my own and 2 of my nieces. Where are you going to go? You can't just take children and live on the street. My mom was in Italy.
Yeah.
My dad was missing. He was found dead when I was living in that house.
Your dad was found dead?
Yeah, my dad, I put a missing person report out on him when we moved in that house on June 15th. He was found December 8th.
Wow.
He'd been dead.
What happened to him?
He was beat to death.
Oh,
He was beat
that's
to
horrible.
death. Hmm. It was very hard to go identify his body right before Christmas.
I can only imagine. You know, as loose as someone just lost my father recently, the sting's there. You know, you think about him every day. I do think of my father every single day.
I think of mine often too. I can't say every day, but I think of him often. And you know, the funniest things will happen. My grandson, I swear he's the reincarnation of my dad. My dad used to fish all the time, and he'd sit on his feet. I don't know if you've ever seen anyone squat and sit on their feet. Mm-hmm. He'd do that for hours. I can't do it for 10 minutes. He'd do it for hours and hours. And my grandson, Maddox, can do that, and it blows my mind.
So it sounds like the family's all doing very well now.
Yes, they are. They are all doing very well.
So there's always light at the end of the tunnel.
You have to have faith. You have to have faith. I mean, I have learned so much. As hard as that experience was, it's put me on a path of studying that I haven't stopped. I'm still studying. I can't come up with a single experience that mirrors mine. And I often wonder what the difference was, what happened to cause mine to be so horrific.
So what are you doing these days? Are you still involved with the paranormal?
I am. I help people. I get contacted all the time with people that are having experiences and they need help. And I go in and I clear the house. I do it from a Christian base because I am a Christian. Mm-hmm. I'm a strong Christian. I follow that. I study Hebrew, and I'm from Israel. I'm taking classes from Israel on the Torah and Hebrew. And I go into houses when they request it. I tell them what they need to do. And like one of the last cases I had, the guy was levitating and he was changing, and his eyes would turn completely black and his skin would turn gray. He was pretty far gone, but he was addicted to drugs. And I told him, I said, I can't do anything for you until you get off the drugs. And he went into rehab, and when he came out, we did a clearing on the house and got everything okay. I had to do 2 or 3, but we did get it done. And now he's goes to church every Sunday, and he walks. Because once you experience that, you have to walk in a state of grace. You cannot leave grace, or you'll be open to attack again.
You know, it's funny that I've known friends of mine that they used to be smokers or drinkers, okay, heavily. You know, almost like they had a demon on their back they had to get rid of. And
they did.
And it amazes me that how they tell me how much better they feel afterwards. A friend of mine quit drinking. He was drinking quite a bit, quite often. And now he just like, I can't tell you how good I feel. I mean, I'm in a really, really good place. You know, yeah. I feel healthier. I don't even have the desire to drink again. And it's just amazing how you can walk away from something that's an addiction and come out and just be so positive and feel so good about it, you know? So with your experience in the case that you went through, what message would you share with people basically that you've learned from that whole experience?
I've learned that evil is real and God is real, and you have to choose, and only you can choose.
That's a very powerful message. I mean, we think about this stuff as paranormal investigators. You know, we try to go in with the investigative cap on. It's like science, right? Just science, nothing more than science. And we can't help but lean towards a metaphysical side sometimes, or leaning towards a religious side sometimes, you know? And I've known some paranormal investigators like, oh, it's just, you got to get this equipment, and you got to get readings and temperatures and EVPs, and that's the only evidence we can think of. But as soon as something goes astray or they get a bad feeling, the first thing they do is start pulling out prayer cards and crosses and reciting, It's like, wait a minute. Let's step back here. Let's go back to the scientific thing, right? And Pete always said something to me that stuck with me for the longest time, that we've known people who are very resistant to the fact that there's spirits, okay? They're in the paranormal, but they don't believe in spirits. But then they go to church on Sundays, and who do they pray to? The Holy Spirit. So,
the Great Spirit.
Right. And so it amazes me how people, the thought process, I mean, literally when they get scared, it's the name of God, it's a prayer, it's a crucifix, it's rosary beads, and it should be like a calculator and a textbook and some piece of equipment, but they don't turn to that. They go right for the religious thing to save them. That's I always found that sort of amusing.
Well, let me see you take a calculator or a camera or anything else and chase a demon away.
Oh,
I want you to let me know.
I'd be praying to God. I'll tell you right now. I had one experience. I had one very bad experience, and it just knocked the life out of me. And, it changed my whole perspective. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a life-changing experience for me. Philip's cancer was the big life-changing. And then to move into that haunting house on top of that, I mean, it changed my perspective in every way. I don't think I even think anything that I used to think.
Oh, no. I mean, you're a very, very brave woman. You're a very brave woman, and you held that family together like glue. And that's not something a lot of people can do. People nowadays, they wig out and they need to get medication because of their social media is not working correctly, or somebody said something because they're so sensitive, or their Netflix show got canceled. It's just a different world, is it not? I mean, people. I don't know anybody like that. People used to be so much more durable than they are now, I think. And when you live through a crisis like you went through, attack from an enemy you can't see, but just constantly attacking you, trying to figure out why. Why me? What do you want? How's this going to end? And then 9.5 weeks of it. I mean,
it was actually 2 years. 2 years of it, but it was 9.5 weeks after I got involved. But my kids suffered through it for 2 years.
Unbelievable.
2 years. Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's very hard to think about, and I carry a lot of guilt because I did not, and that's one thing I try to instill in parents. I'm like, don't be so quick to poo-poo that, but then don't pull them in your bed and leave them there for the rest of their lives either. They have to you have to find a happy medium. You have to talk to them and tell them that, yes, the stuff exists, but you have power. You can control it, and you can stop it. You have the power to stop it. The blood of Jesus is the best thing in the world for that. And I've taught all my grandchildren that. My children have allowed their children to sleep with them because of what happened to them in that house. Well, what has happened since then is their children don't know how to cope with overcoming fears. They're afraid to be alone. Because they've never had to see the monster under the bed. They've never had to separate themselves from all of that stuff and learn that it's not really going to happen. My fears are not as bad as what's really going to happen. It's my imagination sometimes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a double-edged sword, and you have to be very careful when you're dealing with this stuff. Because, like I said, my children have gone the opposite way to where they protected their kids too much. Now they don't know how to overcome fears. Like one of my grandchildren, you have to walk them to the bathroom.
Like, I think we're in a better time period now. Like when I was growing up in the 1980s, I grew up in a haunted house. I had an experience when I was 7 years old. And I'm happy to actually talk to someone who's experienced that, because in the world of the paranormal, once you start talking matter-of-factly about like in your case, demons, or like things I've seen growing up, people think you're crazy. And that was the one thing my parents had always said, don't tell anybody about this stuff. They're going to think you're crazy. Just don't talk about it. Then one Christmas dinner when we were in our 20s, they're telling all the stories that happened to them in the house. And it's like, well, you told me nothing was happening, but you're
Yeah.
But yeah,
It is crazy.
Our biggest thing is people always say this at the presentations. There's no room in the paranormal for religion. We're like, you might want to revisit that philosophy. I think it's the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't separate that to me. I mean, to me, if I did not have the faith that I had, I would be in a padded room by now. If you think about some of the things I experienced and the things I smelled and the things I saw, and the simple fact of being removed from your own body, that's very traumatic. Without your control. I mean, I had no control of where I was and what I was going to be, except for calling on Jesus. And he appeared and brought me back to my bed. And then an angel held my hand all night that wore a gold watch.
So, I mean, it's interesting because, like a demonic attack, and its goal is to destroy the family, destroy you, you know? For what gain, I don't know, you know? And it's just interesting. Then you can have a priest come in once you identify. Did you have to know the name of the demon and all that kind of stuff in order to exorcise it?
No, because the name of Jesus is so much more powerful, you don't need to know the name. They never even asked the name.
Really?
They covered it in, now I'm really not supposed to talk about this, but you know, they cover it in the 7 deadly sins with the lust, the anger, sloth, that.
Yeah.
You know, they said spirit of fear, you be gone. Spirit of anger, be gone. Spirit of addiction, be gone. Spirit of chaos, be gone. Spirit of, you know, so they covered all of those crazy emotions and made them be gone.
How long did the exorcism take?
4.5 hours.
2 years of suffering, and they made it go away in 4.5 hours.
And I could have done it all myself.
Really?
But I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know how powerful I was and that my faith would make me strong enough to make the demons flee.
Maybe that's the end game. That you had such a powerful faith that was a challenge to them, you know? How do we make her break? You know?
They came very close.
It seems to me that they felt that they could make the others possibly break, but they had their eye on the prize, and that was you. They could make you break, then they basically done an amazing job and to be awarded somehow. And you're very sturdy and basically didn't give in, you know?
They
and
probably thought that since she's holding the family together, everything else would break if they broke, you know, the base,
Yeah.
the foundation.
Mm-hmm. But as I said before, they couldn't have touched me had I not given them permission because of my faith and because of who I was. And they couldn't have. But they knew how to get to me through my children. And I think there's not a mom in the world that won't give up everything to rescue her child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I did. I was willing to go toe-to-toe with any demon that ever existed to save my son. And I would do it today, too.
Absolutely amazing. You know, and it's the whole case has just changed your life in so many ways, so many positive ways. It's taking you down a path, you know, to still be involved with the paranormal. It's interesting. Do you think that people just decide, like, they watch a TV show on the paranormal and say, I think I want to go into the paranormal and be an investigator? That looks fun. Or do you think sometimes people haven't experienced it and it leads them down that path? Like in your case, obviously, in some of, like Pete was talking about living in a haunted house, that kind of took them down that path. So it almost comes to me that it's like a profound thing where people have an experience of some sort depends on the magnitude of it, and then they end up going into the paranormals for some way. You know, and the level that they go in kind of depends on, I guess, the experience. Like, you know, John Zaffis basically had an aunt and uncle that were like the pioneers of the paranormal. You know,
he lived in a haunted house as a young boy. Ed Warren lived in a haunted house.
All right. So, yeah, again, that experience kind of took him in the direction. Have you read any of their books, like The Demonologist?
No. I have a book with them, In a Dark Place.
Right.
I've read that one.
I hope so. It's interesting, basically, and I've watched some old interviews of them on YouTube. When they're, you know, it was kind of like a cheesy studio with like a picture of a haunted house in the corner, and it was
they painted.
It was. I think it was. Is it Tony? It's their son-in-law, maybe, was the narrator and was asking them questions, and it was just kind of cheesy. But at the same time, it was interesting to learn what they had to say. Essentially, like Ed's like, it was discovery to him. He's like, people just don't understand. All this stuff is going around them. They don't understand this. I don't know why they don't believe this. It was just interesting because he was very convincing to listen to him.
Oh, yeah.
Talk. And like you said before, he was doing most of the talking. Lorraine would sit there and go,
yes,
like this. And then every once in a while she would add something, you know, and then break back to Ed.
Yeah. Ed was a very, very powerful personality. John kind of takes after him.
Does he now?
Kind of. John's calmed down a lot, but the early years, he was a lot like Ed.
Really? Well, if I could find that picture of him with the long hair, with the hat,
I have a copy of it.
Shirt. You have a copy of it?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know where it is, but I could see.
Oh, you need to find that and send that to me.
I sense a meme coming on.
All I could think of was Jesus Christ at Woodstock. That's what came into my mind. That's what came to my mind. And that was John Zaffis. Wow, what a difference. He was a free spirit hippie, man, back in the day.
I was too.
Well,
I was too in my early years. Then I became a conservative, and that all went away.
We change. Our political views and everything change as we go through different stages of our lives. But, well, that's interesting. And, you know, John and I have talked about this case. I don't know how many times we've discussed it. And he's always kind of been elusive. He'll tell me a little bit, but not enough. You shared with me more information in the time we spent together tonight than I've got out of John in all the years I've known him about this case.
Well, it's something I lived, and I want people to understand the gravity of demonic, and we are all, whether you want to admit it or not, we're all in a battle of good and evil, and you have to choose. You can't sit on the fence post with your calculators and your devices. You're going to have to choose which side of the fence you're going to be on there, fella.
That statement's going to haunt me now, isn't it? Well, I'm Catholic.
I know you a little better than that. I'm just playing with you.
That's fine.
Well,
I'm always good for a good ribbing.
If you want the Creature Pete comment, I've heard for years, like they tell you, we don't choose God. God chooses us for the missions. That sounds like something that's...
That's probably what happened to me. Because so many things had to be... I had to drive past that house, first of all, because it wasn't advertised. My son had to have cancer. My grandmother had to have a stroke that she couldn't communicate. My dad had to be missing. Just so many things had to fit together perfectly for that to happen. One thing could have thrown the whole thing off.
And that's one big jigsaw puzzle. Wow. Put that all together to make all that happen. Yeah, it almost seems like it's, after talking to you now, it's like a chain of events that kind of happened. And it's, that's interesting. Very interesting. Well, I appreciate you being on with us tonight. You know, spending some time on your Sunday night. April, we're all on lockdown here. So,
Quarantine.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Normally we do this. We have a studio. It's a really nice studio, and our producer and engineer Todd, who you can't see, is kind of running
Hi,
this.
Todd.
There's Todd.
A disembodied voice. Oh no, get the
Yes.
holy water.
Definitely. We have some of that in our group. We carry some holy water with us.
In my purse, along with holy salt and oil.
I'm still
See,
waiting for
I'm not
Pete to
that
get the
strange
shit.
now, am
No, you're not. Pete's got a shotgun with rock salt in it, so just in case.
Oh, I want one, Pete.
We can get you one.
I've had a squirt gun with holy water in it, but I never thought of the rock salt.
Oh man, but that'd be the most awesome attack on a demonic entity. I'll have to remember that if we go back to the Hinsdale
Can you get you a
house.
holy water?
I'm gonna go in that
squirt
bedroom there
gun?
and just start squirting everything down with holy water. See
Super
what happens.
soakers.
Super soaker, holy water.
There you go.
Super soaker, the Jesus edition. Basically,
Yes.
I'm waiting for that. So, does anyone have any last minute questions here to wrap things up?
No, I appreciate you for sharing, and we wish you all the best in the future.
Yes. Thank you very much.
It was
It's
amazing.
my pleasure. I enjoyed meeting each and every one of you, although you're all the size of postage stamps. But, it's nice.
It was so
chatting
good
with
to
you.
still good to see you again, and thank you so much for spending some time with us. And hopefully, we can do it again after the lockdown.
I hope you're well.
Maybe after
Rick,
the
you were-
lockdown, we can set up and have you come up to upstate New York again.
Oh,
She's
that
been
would be a
here.
blast.
Yeah.
That'd be a blast.
You still have the statue of Mary?
John Zaffis has it, and I don't know if you saw the documentary where the crucifix flew off the wall and nearly hit me in the back of the head. He has that too.
He's got a lot of things. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's a nice Rolex you got. I think it's haunted.
He's got a coffin key that came from the house,
Oh.
Wow.
The one
just
question
in
I
case
have
you ever
for
need
you
one.
Hi,
is,
Vinny.
in your in the documentary, it showed a lot of crucifixes came up missing throughout the house.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where they all went?
No, never did find them. And you know, I had a rosary that was made by a blind lady when I made my first Holy Communion.
Mm-hmm.
And she handmade it, and I sat there and watched her do it, and I treasured it. And it was on every wall in my bedroom from that time until I moved in that haunted house. And it disappeared, and I never did find it. Never. The rosary, none of the crucifixes, we never found any of them.
Wow.
Man.
And we never found the embalming machine that disappeared either.
The embalming machine came up missing.
Yes, an antique embalming machine came up missing.
Wow.
A percolator, or was it a standard unit?
It looked like a box with a bunch of little things on it.
Okay.
Does that help?
In one of the documentaries, it showed they had a cooler in the basement.
A freezer.
Yep.
Yeah, a walk-in.
No, it was a household freezer.
Oh,
They made it into something it wasn't.
Oh, okay, because they made it look like it was one for the bodies.
No, it was they didn't have one of those in that house. He embalmed them right away, and he put them in the viewing room. He didn't have a freezer. If he did, they took it. There was not a freezer in the house. That was our freezer. It came with us, but it used to talk to Philip.
Did it showed at one point the boys were on the table spinning around. They took the table out of the room?
It wasn't the stainless steel table. It was a wooden table with a skirt around it where they would sit the coffin.
Oh, okay.
And they left that there. And you're going to think this is crazy, but I used to fold my laundry on it.
Oh.
But the boys...
There's where it all started.
And the boys played it?
One of the boys got underneath the skirt and was chasing somebody around, and then another time Philip put Brad on there, and he was spinning him around and around and around and scaring Brad.
I was just
Interesting.
wondering.
Thoroughly on into it. But it wasn't the stainless steel one.
Now, your story in itself, you've got a lot of experiences throughout this haunting, and I mean, there's plenty to work with. If you had to choose one thing that obviously not everything in the movies were real to what happened to you, if you had to choose one thing that they added that kind of bothered you that you prefer not to be in the movie, what would that be?
Bodies in the wall.
Yeah.
That was my guess.
Always what we bring up, too.
Yeah.
That was my first guess.
Do you know how many people have asked me if that really happened? I said, do you think that for a minute CNN wouldn't be at my house every day? Did you find out who those bodies belonged to? No, that didn't happen. That would have been all over the national media.
Yeah, the CSI would have been there, forensics, the whole state of Connecticut would have been in there, basically
Probably be in
trying
jail.
to be DNA to try to find all the missing people for the last 50 years.
They'd all be in the Zaffis Museum.
I would
been
believe
glad
there's
to give
bodies.
them to him.
I believe there's bodies in his walls.
How long was that funeral home open for? Do you know? How many years was that funeral home open for?
45, I believe. Might have even been 50. It was a long time.
Wow.
Wow, some serious.
He was 88 when he left, and one of the people that came to the house later just to say, I hear your house is haunted. I wanted to see if it was my Aunt Susie that was in here. That happened frequently, but they said that he had a macabre sense of humor. He would always tell people, I'll see you soon.
I know a lot
Vinny,
of
do you say
funeral
that to people, Vinny?
Someday.
All right, guys, we need to wrap this up here. I'm getting little messages from the producer here, so keep things moving on. So thank you so much, Carmen, for joining us tonight. We learned a ton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Shalom.
Have a
Yes.
great night.
Make sure you send me that picture.
I will find it. Not tonight, though.
Okay.
I have to
but
make
I'll-
up to my husband some.
All right. I'll be looking for that.
Okay.
That's very, very valuable. So thank you.
All right.
Have a wonderful night. The rest of you stay on with me, so
Okay.
and we'll continue on.
All right.
All right. So that was a truly interesting episode. I learned a lot. I can tell you that. A lot about John I didn't know, and a lot about the case. So I've watched the movie, I watched the documentary, I read the book, and there's always something new to learn, and I picked up a few interesting things from that. So I'm glad she was able to join us tonight. So any parting comments before we go our ways here?
The only thing that I want to say is thank you for everyone that's watching.
Yes.
Also, if you need anything, check out Disruption Network. They have tons of shows on there. Besides ours, a lot of interesting stuff throughout the week. If you're a business, you're looking for advertisements, reach out to them. They can put you on here, and your name's going to get out there. So if you need anything, reach out to Disruption. They're awesome.
Yep.
Oh,
In
good.
this time of quarantine, it's a great time to spend, instead of watching Seinfeld or Big Bang Theory over and over and over again. Trust me, I get caught up in that. Yeah, exactly. Get online. Watch Disruption Network. They got a lot of great shows. Like Kevin said, there's some really good content there. Paranormal stuff. There's a lot of other things that they talk about. They got great sponsors. And get on there and watch it and enjoy it. So
They got sports. They got music. Did Z shave his head or something the other day? I don't even.
Possibly.
You got to watch different things to see what mask Z's wearing that day. So.
Yep. I've watched a couple of Z shows. They're pretty cool.
he's keeping it real. He's
He gonna do a cooking show? How to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches?
Oh, is that Pete?
Yep.
Anytime.
We're waiting for Pete to resurrect the Paisano Paranormal show. Q and
There you
Pete.
go.
It was a lot of fun. Just being in the studio and watching him cook, and then just be able to eat dinner at like 8:00 at night, which is always fun, So check us out on Facebook at Agent Paranormal, Instagram also, and tune in Disruption Network. Check them out on social media. A lot of great content, and we will see you all in a couple weeks. And stay good. We're almost at the end of this pandemic. We're almost at the end of this quarantine. Cuomo said May 15th. Somehow I feel that's going to be extended. And stay tuned for details of the Rucker Mansion event that we've had to reschedule due to the pandemic.
Rich, the little Indian boy says May 29th.
Oh, that's
Yep.
right. Yes. Yep.
Who's the little Indian boy?
There was a young Indian child who actually predicted this pandemic was going to happen, and he, about 2 weeks ago, predicted that it would magically end on the 29th.
Of May?
Yeah,
Yep.
he's a proclaimed prophet.
Okay.
So we'll
then
see.
the 30th of May, we get to go out ghost hunting again. Yeah! For the win.
Looking forward to it.
Nice.
Absolutely. So y'all have a good night. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Mae. Thank you,
Thank
Danny.
you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Todd.
Love you.
Carmen.
Thank you
We'll
all.
talk soon. Thank you, our
Good
viewing
night, everyone.
audience.
We'll
Have
see
a
you
great
later.
night, guys.